Hi everyone, this is Michelle from East Ave Art, and today I'm going to paint this cherry cheesecake in my sketchbook as part of a kind of sweet cold treats of summer spread that I'm doing in my sketchbook this week. So I started this sketch by taking some tracing paper and putting it on top of my graph paper so I can see the graph lines underneath. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted a specific angle for my cheesecake. I wanted to be sort of above and behind the slice of cheesecake because I wanted to get that crumb coating on the back painted on. And there you see me kind of adding the cherries on top, and the cherries will be in a little bit of some syrup that'll be kind of pouring over the side. So I'm sketching all of that out before I transfer my sketch over to my sketchbook. And you can also see I have some of the other treats that I'm going to paint in my sketchbook later, the popsicle and a little bit of a sketch of the ice cream cone that I'm going to be working on soon. Okay, so I start by activating my paints with the spray bottle, and I'm going to mix up, I think, all the colors that I'm going to use here. So I start with a really creamy yellow for the base of my cheesecake, and you'll see me add a lot of water and even some white paint in there as well, just to get like a creamy, very light color to start for my cheesecake. And then I'll also mix up the crust color, which is going to be sort of like a brown, a slightly darker than the cheesecake brown, that I think I'm going to use some like ochre there. And I'll also use a sort of like a lighter brown as well. And I think just to stay with like a creamy consistency, I'm also going to add in a little bit of white paint to that mix too, and then red for the cherries. So once I transfer the sketch over to my sketchbook, I kind of like to lighten it up a little bit. So I did a little bit of erasing so my lines don't come through. And you can see I've already put down the base of my cheesecake color, and I've allowed that to dry. And now I'm going in with a little bit of a thicker consistency of that cheesecake color. And you can see that I'm just dabbing the paint in. So rather than brushing my paintbrush across the surface, you can see I'm almost kind of like dotting. And I'm trying to get that sense of like the unevenness that you see in a slice of cheesecake when you look at it from the side. It's not, I don't think it's a very smooth finish, unlike the top. And so I achieved that effect. Hopefully you can see that by doing that sort of like dotting. And I'm going to do the same thing with this crust. So I'm painting the color on now, and I'm going to do just sort of a flat, obviously just, regular painting it in, but I'm going to use the same strategy that I used on the side of the cheesecake. And you can see I'm dropping in some paint while it's still wet, just to get a little bit of an uneven look there, because of course, like the crust, it's crumbly, so it is gonna look a little bit uneven. But I will let that dry, and then I'll come back and do the same thing with like kind of like the dotting that I did on the side of the cheesecake. And I'm also painting in the crust underneath the slice, and I'm trying to be kind of uneven with my painting there as well. And while all of that's drying, I'm moving on to an area that of the painting that won't touch anything, any paint that's still wet. So I've moved on to kind of getting my cherries with the sauce painted onto the top of the cheesecake. So one thing that I always like to recommend is just to turn the sketchbook or the piece of paper that you're painting on, just to get the angles you want. I always feel free to flip it around as much as you need to. So I'm going to flash forward a little bit. Now that my crust has dried, I'm again doing the same dotting that I did with the side of the cheesecake, just to kind of create this sense of like inconsistency in the crust that you would naturally see. So now that I've allowed my cherries to dry on top, I'm going to mix up a little bit of a darker color for some of the not the cherries themselves, but the sauce, which I think is a little bit darker. So I'm gonna paint in some shadows around where like the sauce would be its thickest, and maybe where the cherries are casting a little bit of a shadow within the sauce, or where it would be its thickest, kind of on the top of the cheesecake. Here I'm going in with another layer of just plain red paint. I think I've talked about this before, but red is a color that I feel like the first layer of it, I'm never really satisfied. So I wanted to up the vibrancy a little bit on this red. So I added just another layer of paint here. So you can see I'm going back to that color, the shadow color that I created by mixing red and purple. And I'm going to keep playing around with this until I'm happy with the the little bit of transparency that you get from the cherry sauce, but also the shadow that the cherries would be casting, because, you know, there's something solid underneath, the sauce. And then I also like to have a little bit of a shadow at the base of the sauce that's dripping down the cheesecake, just to kind of give it that sense of like 3D. And here I got a little bit of white gouache out because I wanted to kind of capture the shininess of cherries and sauce. And so, that I think that little white bit kind of casts off that little glint of light that you would see. Just to add a little bit more of a sense of 3D, I did mix up a little bit of blue, a very, very watery consistency of blue, and you can see me painting that around where the cherry sauce is dripping down, where it would be casting a shadow as well. And I think that just adds a little bit of a touch of realism to this piece. Okay, there you have it. Here is my cherry cheesecake. It's the first of my sweet treats in this sketchbook series, and I hope you'll continue watching. Please like and subscribe if you would like to see more content like this. Thanks so much for watching.